Hello everybody, my name is Elena. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm doing my November wrap-up. Now, I don't usually do wrap-ups because I don't do TBR videos and because I don't like to share every single book that I read. Some books I just keep private. So I don't do wrap-ups and I probably won't do wrap-ups unless I do a TBR video like I did for November. Because if you haven't seen that video, I'll link it. But I let my TBR jar full of TBR prompts pick my November TBR, and then I picked 6 books to go along with the prompts. So I had 6 books to read in the month of November that were planned out. Here's the thing. I filmed that video not in the beginning of the month. So I had already read 3 books before that video, and so I didn't have that much time to read the 6 books that I picked, and I did not read 2 of them. And we're going to talk about it later. I'm going to talk about those books at the end. But for now, we're just going to talk about the books that I read in November in the order that I read them in. First book that I read in the month of November was Assistant to the Villain by Hannah Nicole Maurer. I'm so sorry if I'm butchering the name. I loved this book. Okay, I give it 4.75 stars. This was a delight to read. Basically, this book is about this girl living in this fantasy world. It is a fantasy. Although it's not high fantasy, it's very low stakes. It's just more fun. If you're looking for high fantasy, I don't think you should pick this book up. Or if you're looking for really complicated world building or stuff like that, this is just the kind of book that you pick up if you want to not be in the real world, but still have a lot of fun. And if you want a fantasy book that kind of feels like a rom-com, this is done really well. So this girl is living in this world. I'm sorry, I forgot her name. I'm so sorry. I'm so bad with remembering character names. Even if I like the books, I will forget the character names. I'm so sorry. But this girl is just living in this village with her little sister and her dad that's sick, and she kind of feels like a disappointment because she can't hold down a job, and then she quit this other job for reasons that I won't share because you have to read the book to find out. And then she goes to this forest and she sees the villain that everyone keeps talking about. He's like this feared man or creature, whatever. They don't even know what he is. They just know that he's scary and they fear him, and he finds her in the forest, and then he gives her a job, and he's like, okay, you can be my assistant. And that's all I'm gonna say, because this book was so fun to read. Dude, I was laughing at every single page that I read. I don't own this book. I read it on my Kindle. But if I did own it, there would be a billion tabs in it because it was so funny. It was so sweet. I loved the villain because I think he was done perfectly. He was a villain, but he wasn't sexist or anything. He wasn't homophobic. It was just, he was really good. Okay, I love a villain that still respects women, and that's exactly what it was. And I loved it. If you're looking for a quick, really fun, really funny read, pick up Assistant to the Villain. It's so good, and it'll kind of take you away from the real world because it is a fantasy, but it's still so easy to read. It was a delight. Next book that I read was Next of Kin by Hannah Bonham Young. And I'm now realizing that both books are by Hannah, but just a different Hannah. Anyways, this is the first book in the Next of series by Hannah Bonham Young, and it's also the first book that I've read by this author. I really liked it. I honestly read Next of Kin just because I wanted to read the second book called Next of You. That one interested me more than the first one, and I still haven't read the second one. Who knows when I'll read that one, but I really enjoyed this one. I gave Next of Kin 4.5 stars. I thought it was really sweet. I really liked the characters. The book is basically about this girl that grew up in foster care because her mom couldn't take care of her. She had alcohol problems and alcohol addiction, stuff like that, so she couldn't take care of her. So she grew up with foster parents. And then, a bunch of years later, I think maybe 10 years later, she gets a phone call that her mom gave birth, and she now has a sister. And her mom can't take care of the sister, so they're like, hey, you could apply for custody to have your sister. And she's like, yes, I will take my sister. But then, in order to get custody, she has to have, a good job or a stable income or whatever it was, and she doesn't, but she does have this apartment that very well could fit both of them. They're like great living, like it's a great living environment, but she doesn't have the funds. And so they put her in this program where you pair up with another person that needs some kind of benefit that you have, and they have a benefit that you need. So they like pair you together so they can get custody and you can get custody, and that's basically what happens. And she pairs up with this guy that has a little brother, and he wants custody of him, and his little brother has special needs and he's deaf. So like the representation was great. I loved it. And so they live in her apartment because he needs a good living space until he can find his own, and he has a really good income, and which is what she needs. So they kind of pair them up together. This is so complicated to explain, or I'm making it complicated and it's not. Just read the summary. It'll probably explain it better. But that's the premise of the book. And I thought it was really fun. I didn't know how much I'd like it, but I actually really did. Like, I liked the characters, I liked the relationship. The conversations they were having were very mature, which was on brand because they're literally going to be parents. And I loved the whole progression of like, oh, we're just here because we're helping each other. Like, we don't need to involve each other in our lives. Like, it's fine, you're just gonna live here, and that's that. And then they slowly like start working together, and it's so cute. I loved it. And I think you do meet the characters from Next of You in the book, but only very briefly. I don't even think they have any dialogue. They're just kind of mentioned. But yeah, I have not read the second book, even though the purpose of reading the first book was to get to the second book. It hasn't happened yet. But I really enjoyed this. I highly recommend you read it. The writing was really cute. And it had some really good, nice conversation topics as well, if I remember correctly. It was just really nice. I highly recommend it. And then because Iron Flame came out in November, in preparation, I reread Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. The first time that I read Fourth Wing was, I think, in July while I was on holiday, but I read it on my Kindle, and then I bought the physical copy. So this time around when I was rereading it, I added all of my annotations in, all of like my theories and stuff like that, my tabs. Only one of my theories was right, by the way, but I read this literally exactly before Iron Flame came out. Like, I read it, and then the next day Iron Flame came out, and then I just continued. It was a really good decision on my part, and the first time that I read Fourth Wing, I like sped read it, and honestly I didn't retain a lot of like the characters aside from Violet and Xaden, and I was really sad about it because I loved Rhiannon and I loved Riddick, and I sincerely hope I'm pronouncing their names right. I don't know. But I liked them, but I didn't remember literally anything about them. So when I reread them, I literally fell in love with characters that I like forgot or didn't pay enough attention to the first time. This is why I love rereading books, okay? It's so nice. And I gave it 4.75 stars, the same that I gave it the first time that I read it. It was just as good. And then, like I said, the next book that I read was Iron Flame, literally right after Fourth Wing, and this was a book from that TBR video. I gave Iron Flame 4.25 stars. I originally gave it 4.5 stars, and then I changed it to 4.25 stars because, okay, I also sped read this because I did not want to be spoiled, and this is like a lot bigger than Fourth Wing, and I just want to say, if it's taking you a long while to read this book, the word count is bigger than what the word count is in House of Sky and Breath, and that book looks bigger than this one. This is deceiving. There is so much shit in this book. And that brings me to why it's a 4.25 stars and not higher. I think this was too long. Some parts could have been cut down, and I think it was a bit too long and it dragged at times. I think it could have spent more time with the editor, and I feel like the release of this didn't have to be that rushed, because by the time that people read Fourth Wing, we kind of got accustomed to like waiting for the next book. So you could have waited like a month or two more and then published it. But it's okay. Like, I know a lot of people had trouble with like printing and stuff like that. My copy is perfectly fine, except for the fact that on chapter 14 or 17, there's a dragon missing. Because, like when the chapter oh, literally right here. In chapter 17, there's no dragon art here. which there is in other chapters. So that's the only like problem with my book. I don't have any other issues, but I know people like it was misprinted, like this under the dust jacket said Fourth Wing. Mine's fine. But yeah, so I feel like the release of this book didn't have to be so rushed. And I still really enjoyed it. I mean, the ending made me sob. If you follow me on TikTok, you would have seen my reaction to the last 10 pages of this book because I filmed myself reading it and then I posted it on TikTok, so that's a little shameless plug. But I still really enjoyed this, but I feel like it was a bit too long, and I really liked that we got introduced to new characters. The ending made me sob. It's fine. And then the next book I think is rumored to come out in December next year. I'm so glad that there's like a full year until the next book. I think that's exactly what was needed. But yeah, that's basically all I have to say. I feel like this book was a bit too long. Still really enjoyed it. 4.25 stars is not a bad rating, although I much prefer the first book. This next book is not from my TBR jar, but I needed to read it in order to read another book from my TBR jar. So I needed to read Reckless by Elsie Silver because I picked Hopeless for one of the books that I was gonna read, but I needed to read Reckless first. You know, it makes sense. Okay, they're interconnected standalones. Reckless was first. You get the gist of it. I read Reckless and I gave it 4.5 stars. I really liked it. Okay, I love the Chestnut Springs series, except for Powerless. I don't really like that one. I think the only reason why I gave it 3 stars is because of the other characters in the book. Sorry, I could not care less about Jasper and Sloane. Regardless, this is not what this video is about. I loved Reckless. I love Winter and I love Theo, and I loved the way that the trope was done in this book. I know a lot of people don't like the pregnancy trope or the surprise baby trope, whatever that has to do with pregnancies and babies, people hate. I don't hate it. Like, I feel like a lot of people have visceral reactions to that trope. I don't hate it, and I feel like it was really well done in this book, because although I don't hate it, I don't usually read that trope. I feel like if you don't like the pregnancy or baby trope, you could still give this book a go. You're not getting the journey of her being pregnant. Her being pregnant and finding out and having that one night stand with Theo is kind of like the prologue of the book. The main part of the book is when the baby's already born and Theo figures out that it's his kid, and he didn't know, but she told him, but there was like this miscommunication, but it's not really a miscommunication. It's neither person's fault, is what I'm trying to say. And then he's very involved in being in their lives because he loves her. Like, he loves Winter, but he also loves his daughter. And it was just such a sweet story. I really liked it. I thought it was great. I give it 4.5 stars. Going back to the books that I picked for my TBR, we have House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J. Maas. I'm gonna let you look at the tabs in the book. What do you think I rated it? I rated this 5 stars. I love this book. I adore this book. If I could inject this book into my veins, I would. This is my baby. I love this. Me and her were like this, okay? So good. A lot of people say that this book starts off really slow and that there's a lot of world building. Listen to me. If you want to read this book and you're scared because of what people are saying, I'm telling you right now, people are being a bit dramatic. I'm sorry, someone has to say it, it's gonna be me. It's not that bad. Like, the first 60 pages do have a lot of world building, but that you don't need to retain all of the world building in order to enjoy the story. Just read it, get through the 60 pages. The parts that are important will keep coming up in the book. Like, the integral parts of the world building or whatever will keep being mentioned in the book to remind you of it, because the author knows that you're not going to be able to retain all of it. Like, no human being, unless you're Spencer Reid, can retain that much, like, info dumping, although it wasn't really dumped. You know what I mean. What I'm trying to say is you don't need to worry about the world building so much. And it's not as slow as people say. I'm actually struggling with House of Sky and Breath because I think that one's a lot slower than this one. That's the reason why I didn't finish that book this month, because I find it so slow. This was not slow. Like, you get to meet these characters and then something happens, and I don't want to mention what happens because even though it says it on the back, I kind of want you to experience it yourself. But like, you get these characters and then something happens and you get these other characters, and it's just so fun. Not one single part of this was boring. And I read this so fast. Just, If you're scared of the world building, don't be. People are being a bit dramatic when they say that it's, oh my god, it's like so bad. It's not that bad, and it's really entertaining, and I just highly recommend this series. But yeah, that's all I have to say about this. I gave it 5 stars. I adore it, and I am reading the second book. I just didn't finish it for this video. Next book I read was My Roommate's a Vampire by Jenna Levine. This is again one of the books that I picked from like my TBR jar. I was disappointed by this book. I give it 2.75 stars. Okay, so when I saw this book, I was like, oh my god, a vampire. That's fun. And when I think of a vampire, I think like Damon Salvatore, Klaus Michelson, even like Elijah Michelson, you know, kind of that kind of genre vibe to it. I don't expect a vampire that's so old and has been in a coma so he doesn't understand the modern world and he's basically acting like a toddler. I'm sorry, I said it. Okay, I did not enjoy this book. I did not enjoy the characters, and there were like some parts of the book that were kind of cute, and then other parts that I really couldn't stand. I just really didn't like how how the vampire was created and was explained. I don't know. I didn't find it interesting. I did not connect to any of the characters. I think there's going to be a sequel about one of the side characters. Don't care. I will not be reading it. I know I'm being a bit harsh, but like I was so disappointed by this. I thought I'd like it more, but at least the cover is cute and it looks cute on my shelf, but like I wish I liked it. I literally have 2 tabs in this book. That's it. 1 pink tab and 1 yellow tab. That's the extent of it. So sorry, did not enjoy this, and honestly, I don't recommend it. The last book that I read this month, book 8, is Hopeless by Elsie Silver. No, I still don't have it. It has not yet been delivered to me. I should have had it by now, and if it doesn't come by the end of this week, I'm probably going to email the store that I bought it from, but for now, I don't have it in my hands. But I loved this book. This is the conclusion to the Chestnut Spring series by Elsie Silver, and I gave this book 4.75 stars. I loved it, okay? I was so excited about this book. I didn't know if I was gonna pre-order it, and then I did pre-order it, and I mean, it still hasn't arrived, but whatever. I love the trope in it. It's like this, I love the like fake engagement, forced proximity thing they had going on. I love Beau. I love Bailey. I've loved Beau since the first book, and I know a lot of people actually are kind of disappointed by Hopeless, because I guess they were expecting something else. I thought it was great. I really didn't have any qualms with it. It just didn't give me the 5-star feeling, so that's why I didn't give it 5 stars, but I gave it 4.75 stars, and that's still really good. So I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it was super fun, and it was kind of like really sweet to end off the series, but it was also like sad. It's really bittersweet to read this book because it's kind of ending this series that's so good and comforting, I feel like, to a lot of people. It's just some of the best interconnected standalones I've ever read are from the Chestnut Spring series by Elsie Silver. I love it. And it's just, I don't know. I loved Bailey, and I thought that the way that the conflict happened was actually kind of realistic. I know a lot of people have qualms about it. I thought it was fine. I was not mad about it. I always get scared with romance books when it comes to the 3rd act breakup. I had no problems with this one. It was fine. Again, the only reason why it's not 5 stars is because it didn't give me the 5-star feeling. What's left of the TBR video is the 2 books that I did not read in the month of November. The first one being House of Sky and Breath by Sarah J. Maas. This is how far in I am. And honestly, like I said before, I think this book starts off so slow. Like, the first 200 pages are kind of agonizing to read. I'm so sorry. I felt like I was reading characters that weren't the characters from House of Earth and Blood. I can definitely say I will not be giving this 5 stars. It might still be a high rating because it's really picked up now. Like, I read 160 pages yesterday because it was really good, but I think what's helping is the fact that I'm also listening to the audiobook while I'm reading. If I was just gonna read, I don't think I would be able to read this book. And that's such a shame, but like, it's not bad. I just think it's really slow. I was laying in bed yesterday and I was like, why did I love House of Earth and Blood so much, and I'm not really enjoying House of Sky and Breath that much. And then I realized it's because I actually also much preferred the writing in House of Earth and Blood. And I don't know how to explain what's different about it in this book than in the first one, but that one was like gut-wrenching. And it had this plot with Danica that I'm not going to talk about because spoilers, but like it was just so heavy on the Danica and Bryce plot, and I loved that. And for some reason it's kind of missing here, which I understand it would be repetitive, but I don't know. I can't really tell you much more about this because I also haven't finished it, even though I know how it ends. But I couldn't do it. Realistically, if I enjoyed the book more, I would have read it in time for November. But alas, I did not. So I'm reading it right now, and maybe it'll be read in December. I mean, I sure fucking hope so. I don't want to take this book into the new year, okay? I want to read it in December, and then in January, like right at the end, I can read House of Flame and Shadow. And the last book from that TBR video that I didn't read was This Woven Kingdom by Tahereh Mafi. This one doesn't surprise me as much, but I am kind of disappointed that I didn't get to read it because I would have. If I had the time, I would have read this book. And now I don't know when the next time I'm going to want to read this book is gonna be. But I really thought I could do it this month and get it off my TBR, and I didn't. And I'm kind of sad about it. But I also know that I don't want to read it in December. So I guess we'll just have to see when I read this book. Stay tuned, everybody. And when I read this book, I will be cheering at the top of my lungs. You'll probably be able to hear me, actually. So you'll know when I finally read this. That is it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Don't expect a wrap up for December, or January or February unless I do a TBR video, but I don't really like doing TBRs, so we'll see when the next wrap up is going to be. But thank you so much for watching this one. Like, comment, subscribe if you'd like, and I will see you in my next video. Bye-bye.